the conceptual level, people understand that if you have more volume and you leverage that in the marketplace, you should be able to buy better. But
Yeah.
theory versus execution, there was quite a canyon between those two.
All right, well, we are recording. So
Let's
today's
go.
guest is Bill Smithers, founder of CBUSA, and one of the people who quietly changed the economics of the home building industry. Bill figured out how independent builders could band together, gain real buying power, and compete with the biggest players in the country. So, Bill, before we get into the lessons and the growth story, tell our listeners who you are and how you came about building CBUSA.
Great, thanks, Jennifer. I am a builder by profession and have been in the building industry since 1985. So it's a very long time that I've been working here. I worked for 10 years on the production side of the world with a national home builder known as Ryland Homes. Ryland has been acquired several times, and now that entity is part of the Lennar Group. But during that time, I served in a lot of different roles, including being a division president with them before I left. So, in the mid '90s, I started my own custom building operation in Northern Virginia. All of my work with in the construction industry has been centered around the DC area. So I started that operation with really high level of excitement about moving into more expensive, higher spec level products and all that. And part of the impetus for CBUSA, in fact, the biggest part of it came from that experience of moving from an operation where we did 500 homes a year and thousands of homes across the country and had very, very good buying power to having an operation that did about 10 homes a year.
Hmm.
And we were kind of the punching bag for the supply channel because we knew we were paying premium pricing for the exact same thing that we were buying
Mhm.
at much larger scale with a production builder. So we started working together through our HBA group of builders, and we called it our co-op, even though technically it wasn't a co-op. But we said, hey, if we work together, we can buy lumber better.
Hmm.
And it was all being done as a volunteer effort, and we had success in the market. So, I was certainly seeing the opportunity there. I was at the same time involved with the National Association of Home Builders and the Builder 20 clubs, and which is a peer group made up of presumably 19 other companies from around the country whose businesses are like yours. So you really get into the weeds on financials and strategies that are working and that kind of thing. It's a really helpful program. And builders in my group were like going, wow, love what y'all are doing in Northern Virginia. Can you come to our market and help us do that? So these were all building blocks to, my belief and this vision that, man, we could take what we're trying to do in Northern Virginia as volunteers and really build business systems around it and
Mhm.
help companies like mine and members of my 20 club and, builders across the country really scale their operations and work together to create a much stronger position in the market and benefit not just their own companies, but the customers that they served and have strong alignment with really great manufacturing and distribution partners across the country. So that was the impetus for CBUSA.
But, what were those early years like? I'm always interested in that, the story, because on paper, my guess is a lot of this made sense and you had some success. And then as you went to new markets, um, why don't you share with us what those early years were like versus, where you are today?
Yeah, there was a lot of us painting the picture of what could be and getting people to get on board that train. At a conceptual level, people understand that if you have more volume and you leverage that in the marketplace, you should be able to buy better. But
Yeah.
theory versus execution, there was quite a canyon between those two. So
Mhm.
our early years in the first cities we went to, the first city outside of DC that we went to was Houston, Texas,
Mm,
and had a really good group of builders there who believed in what we were doing. We're still figuring out the way that we could go about doing it, but supply partners were not on board with it. For them, the
mm,
concept of, wow, all these people that I deal with individually and tell each one of them they're getting my best price. If they all get together and start talking about that, that's going
right.
to create some friction and some challenges. And the input I got from many of those partners was, "Hey, that might work in Washington D.C., but this is Houston, Texas, and that is never going to work here." So, with the support of our builders, and that's the key piece of it, and that's what we've said about our network from day one. It's not what CBUSA does or some magic that we create. We have a system and a team and a process that can deliver amazing results. But it only happens when our customers buy into it and support it and deal with the pushback we know that they're going to get when they go public in the market and say, okay, this is the way we're going to now approach our purchasing.
Wow. So
So,
you had to convince builders, um, individual suppliers, and folks like yourself to all come into this collective group. Is that correct? See, it's like a
exactly.
three-sided marketplace where
Yes. And
it all had
there
to
there
work.
are even other facets to it because we deal directly with manufacturers, but we don't buy from them. We buy their products through distribution partners. So it's like
Hmm.
another spoke on the wheel. But I mean, a big part of what we were able to do successfully was, first of all, we believed with all of our hearts and with a high amount of passion that what we were doing was the right thing and that we were going to get the results. So getting people to buy in at that level was really important. And that applied to distribution partners, manufacturers and builders. But what we felt our role was to not just create the system that they could use to make this work, but we wanted to prepare them for what was going to be coming at them.
Yeah.
And I mean, we would share the comments that we would hear from vendors that we were talking with. It's like they're telling us that you all will never work together. That if
Mm,
we have 20 of you sitting in a room together, the 20 of you can't even agree on the time of day. So there's no way you're ever going to work together to follow the same procedures and adhere to one vendor, one price list, that kind of thing. So that was a rallying cry for the builders, and for us, the criteria for who was a good fit for CVUSA was critical to our success because we couldn't, even though we're supporters of the HBA in all areas, we couldn't do what the HBA does, in that we couldn't just let anyone in. It wasn't that we were trying to be jerks, it wasn't that we were trying to exclude people, but people had to understand what we were doing and realize that group buying is not a spectator sport. I mean, you've got to be in the game because if you're not, you become the one that the market points to and says, "Well, that company isn't supporting it."
Hmm. Yeah.
So, you had to have a good reputation in the market. You had to be able to kind of park your ego. And, for a lot of companies, that was difficult. And you had to pay your bills on time. And those are kind of the three components of how we looked at builders and said, look, if those fit for you, then you're a fit for us. And,
got
we
it.
would tell builders in many cases, look, I get it. You've run your business because you think you're the most awesome person in the market and everybody's giving you the best price. That's fine. You can do that. But you have to have faith that we know that you're not getting what you think you're getting. And if you can put your ego aside
Yep.
and realize that you can be stronger by working with your peers, then this is going to be a really good program for you.
When did you know you built that bridge across that canyon you talk about from theory to execution? When did you know that you really had something here and that maybe you even needed to push and go a little bit faster?
Well, that's I mean that's a great question because through contacts that I had initially through my Builder 20 Club, we got a fair number of groups together quickly, 7 or 8 markets where builders were like, "Yes, we want to do that, and we'll try to do it." And we were funding this privately. We had a small group of investors to say, "I'm my poor business partner, my building company was." I was just like, "All right, you got to do that building company. I'm going to go do this, but we're going to be doing this together." He was a shareholder in CBUSA, but as we started to get more markets on board. And our job, part of our job was we always said, we go tell stories. We talk about what's working in one market, what's not working in another market. We would knit these companies together. We'd let builders from Houston talk to companies in Wilmington, North Carolina, and that kind of thing, and build that synergy. So I think one of the biggest early successes we had was in the Raleigh market. And to date, Raleigh has been our number one market for a lot of different reasons. But we had decided that, and there were some pretty good sized builders there. And there was one vendor, one supply partner that dominated the market. They had probably 70% market share. So they were the gorilla. And the group that we had together, they just, they got it. They understood what we were trying to do. And we would always say, hey, think about how that vendor buys. Do they just go to one partner and just, have it on faith that they're getting the best program? No, they bid things out and they do what's best for their company. So this vendor that just totally owned the market, when we said we're putting our first bid in place for lumber, they gave them the Heisman. They said, we're not doing it. And these companies all together said, okay, well, we're not buying from you. And literally overnight, this big vendor lost a huge chunk of business. I mean,
Wow.
hundreds and hundreds of home starts. And, we think we did a good job of preparing the builders for what would be coming at them. We'd have like the top 10 things that your vendor is going to tell you, as to why you shouldn't do this program. So when they dug
Mhm.
their heels in and said, and it made them mad that they're like, hey, we want you to do this to help us be more competitive in the market. And you're saying you're not going to do that. So when they dug their heels in, and this vendor had to step back, and they ended up coming back to us and saying, okay, now we want in. And they never reached that 70% market share again.
Amazing. Yeah, incredible.
Even 18 years later, they've still never gotten back to that 70% market share
Hmm,
because the group was like, wow, there are other great alternatives in the market. How did we not see that before?
right.
So,
As you s- as you scaled this, what was the bigger challenge? People, capital? Um, this is a podcast, really. We titled it From Grit to Growth. So people that have started businesses, they're gritty, they're scrappy, and then all of a sudden things start to work. But there are challenges along the way. And so, which ones were your priority?
I mean, capital is always a challenge. We were a bootstrap company until the point that we, decided to sell to ultimately to Builder Trend. But we lived within our means, and we built and developed and created product, based on what we had available. But I would say it was really our team and the folks that we built, because we're virtual in setup. We don't have a corporate headquarters. We didn't ever everybody seeing each other face to face, so that presented its own challenges as we started. But man, getting the right people and having them believe in what we were doing, and seeing that our job is to, we always said, you got to push the rock uphill every day.
Mhm.
But when they would get a win, I mean, they would just, you could just feel the fist pumps coming from our team because they know they had helped someone improve their business. So for us, it's really always been about making sure we've got the right fit with the people that we have on the team. And that leads to us getting the right fit with the builders and the partners we work with.
I love the democratization of that. And it just creates win-wins all the way across the board in reality. So I'm going to fast forward a little bit. Builder trend comes into the picture.
Right.
Tell us about that.
It's an interesting piece of the story, but we didn't actually sell to Builder Trend. We sold our company to Builder Trend's number one competitor, which was a company called Co-Construct. And together, I knew the owner of Co-Construct, and probably it was a deal that was 6 or 7 years in the making. And we finally said, okay, now the time is right. But let's come together. We're just going to conquer the world. And 3 months after that acquisition, we found out the Builder Trend was buying Co-Construct, and it wasn't that our guy there was, being sneaky about it, but he had private equity partners. They had plans for how they could take this to the next level. So, it was a moment of terror for us because we didn't know Builder Trend. And, we didn't know the people. We just knew them as the boogeyman that Co-Construct was always going after. So very quickly, it became clear to us that they were really good people, and they believed in what we were doing. And 5 years, 6 years later, now we've quadrupled in size as an organization because of their willingness to help us look forward and invest forward and build the team that we need to create a much bigger footprint in the market. So
Hmm.
that's why we sold the company in the first place, was so that
Right.
we could grow more quickly. We knew we weren't going to do it by, just bootstrapping. We needed to
Right.
roll the dice and say, we got to build this system to create the results that we want.
And is there ever a right time, or, how do you, I know there's a lot of listeners out there that are like, how do I know when the right time is to exit or sell?
Great,
Trick
great question.
question.
I would say you're never going to know until after you do it. But
Yeah.
I think that when you know what you have is really good, and you can see your own growth metrics. And particularly for us in our industry, as we came out of the housing meltdown, which was just a very difficult period for not just us but everybody. I
Yeah.
mean, we had a network that had 400 builders in it in 2008, and we dropped down to 199.
Wow.
I mean, we had people that just like went out of business.
Mm.
So it was
Mm.
a really, really tough period, but it made all of us focus on the things that mattered the most, and integrity being a key piece of that. And as we built our way out of that, just like the rest of the industry did, we knew that what we had was good, and we needed to get it to more people. We were growing, we were comfortable, we were making money, customers were happy, but we kept saying we can be so much more. But we need a partner that believes in us and sees that opportunity. So I would say for folks that are at that juncture, certainly you have a value in mind for your company. And fortunately, in our discussions, the formula was pretty easy. It's a function of EBITDA, a multiple of EBITDA. So we were comfortable with that. We had some investors that were at the latter end of their career who thought they'd never get anything back from CBUSA. So combination of factors told us that this was the right time and the right opportunity.
That's great. So there was some confetti and there was some celebrating.
Yeah, totally.
uh,
Although it was during COVID when we closed the
oh,
deal, so
great.
there wasn't a big party.
Right. So you've been part of a big company, then you started your own, and you started something that was pretty revolutionary, um, in a pretty tough industry, by the way. And then to really put your thumbprint on the world and leave a legacy like that is impressive. And then to exit on your terms, um, you've seen a lot. So the whole cycle, if there's a founder listening that is sitting there kind of saying, "Man, I'm really stuck right now," what advice would you give them?
I'd say step one, and I've mentioned it a couple times. I mean, if you believe in what you're doing, and the value that you can bring to your customers, your industry sector, the partners that work with you, when you really believe that, it allows you to look past the roadblocks that come up every day. And this is part of what we instilled in our team, that you're going to get the wins, but you got to do the work.
Yeah.
You got to get there. So if someone feels like they're stuck, I mean, did we question our business model and our payment structure and all that? Of course, we did that all the time. And we think that was part of who we were as a company.
Yeah.
Our leadership team is pretty small group. We didn't always agree on things, and we also saw that as being one of our strengths. But we trusted each other and we had respect for each other, and it was never like what I want to do is XYZ, and that's just what we're doing. We always just said, no, we're gonna dig into this, and we are going to get on the same page as to what our strategy is going to be. So,
That's all.
I would say for folks that are in that stage, I mean, certainly you need to involve your team and your leaders. You can't involve everybody because not everyone thinks, at like a macro level. But you want to make sure that you get that feedback, and you got to believe that where you're going is meaningful and sustainable and is going to deliver amazing results to your customers. Because when all is said and done, and we saw this in the downturn, we struggled to survive. We had to change our pricing. We had to go back to customers again and again and say, hey, we need to keep your rebates as operating capital. We will pay you back. But
Just do
that
what you
was
can.
it was simultaneously one of the lowest points for us as a company because it was so hard. But at the same time, it was like, oh my gosh, these builders just said that we can use their rebate money to run our company. I mean, what an endorsement of the value that we
Mhm.
bring
Yep.
to them.
And
I
real
mean, it was,
cash.
it was like, I mean, we're like, feeling our hair turn gray as we're going and doing all these meetings, but one after another, the builder said, okay, we're with you. So that really propelled us forward.
In a world where we are nonstop talking about I love having a good conversation about the value of human connection.
Yep.
And that's really what you've talked about quite a bit here, is there's a business to be had through human connection. And that's what you did. And congratulations to you, by the way.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, the keys, I mean, integrity, trust. I mean, the culture that we built for our company, we could look people in the eye and just we're shooting straight. You may not like what you're
Mhm.
hearing us say or what we're telling you we think you need to do, but we believe it, and we're not going to go away. We're going to keep coming at you and saying this is what we need you to do. So when a company would finally acquiesce and go, okay, fine, we'll try XYZ, and then they get a win. I mean, it's just awesome for everybody.
Right.
And
Right.
again, that doesn't apply just to builders. That applies to suppliers, manufacturers who are like, "Oh, how do you think you're going to get all these people to, do XYZ and buy my brand?" And when we turn around and deliver a result to them, they're like, wow, that's
You,
awesome. So
you did it.
it's really
Yeah.
cool.
Do the right thing for the whole. I love that. Well, thanks for having, well, you didn't have us. We had you. Sorry
We
about that.
did.
Thanks for thanks for coming on and talking to us. I'm sure the listeners have learned
Great
quite a
story.
bit from you. Yeah.
Great story.
Thank
Great
you so
success, and congratulations to you.
Thank you.
Happy retirement. Although I know it won't be a total retirement.
Right. My wife is a little afraid if it does become a real retirement. She's like, so what are you doing today?
Yeah.
Yeah, go do something.
You're still here? Thanks, Bill. Appreciate it.